Wife's affair secret covered by family finally exposed. When I discovered the affair messages on her watch and my mother took the cheater's side, I chose to leave everything behind and start over with nothing but empty hands. Welcome to Storytime Reddit, everyone. I used to think I had a fairly peaceful life, not perfect, but warm and steady enough that I never had any reason to question it. My wife, let's call her Lisa, and I had been together for 7 years. She wasn't the romantic type, but we had our own little routines. Movie nights every Saturday, grocery runs every Sunday morning. I worked in construction, and she had a job at an office. A simple life, not too dramatic, or at least that's what I thought. That night is still burned into my memory. After dinner, Lisa opened a bottle of red wine she liked and sat down to watch her favorite reality show in the living room. I was in the next room, switching between the Spurs game and wrapping up a few things I hadn't gotten to during the day. Everything felt completely normal until around midnight. I walked into the living room to check on her since it was getting late. She had passed out on the couch with 2 empty wine bottles on the floor. I was about to carry her to bed when her smartwatch suddenly buzzed. A message popped up on the screen. I swear I wasn't trying to snoop, but the message stopped me cold. "We can't. If my husband finds out, he'll beat the crap out of you." At first, I thought one of Lisa's girlfriends had messaged the wrong person. But then I tapped into the conversation, and it felt like the floor dropped out from under me. It was between her and someone I had trusted for years. That someone was Darina, guy I'd known since high school. Not exactly my best friend, but we'd had plenty of drinks together, played football, soccer, on the same five-a-side team, and I'd always considered him a solid, no-drama kind of guy. We even used to call him the jacket holder back in the day because whenever there was a fight, he'd always be the guy holding everyone's jackets while the rest of us got into it. I never would have guessed he'd be the one flirting with my wife. At first, the messages were vague. "Long time no see. You looked really good in that pic the other day." But the more I scrolled, the worse it got. Lisa, clearly tipsy by then, had crossed every line. She wrote things like, "I've always secretly liked you. No one would ever know if we did something. And the one that destroyed me the most. I'm really good at keeping secrets." That moment is frozen in time for me. Dim lights, television still playing in the background, and me, standing there, absolutely numb. I put her phone down, covered her with a blanket, and walked back to the kitchen where I sat in silence, trying to breathe through the wreckage of my reality. I eventually fell asleep on the chair with an old bottle of vodka by my side, unable to face anyone or anything. The next morning, I woke up at 5:30 like usual, got dressed for work, and got into my van. But once I sat behind the wheel, I just broke down. I couldn't drive. I couldn't pretend nothing had happened. I went back inside, grabbed that half-full vodka bottle, poured some Coke in it, and wandered out to the abandoned railway tracks behind our house. I sat under an old iron bridge like a complete failure, my head spinning, heart burning like it was on fire. I don't think I've ever felt that low before. It wasn't just betrayal by the woman I loved and trusted. With everything, it was betrayal by someone I had once called brother. And the worst part? I had no idea what to do. I couldn't confront Lisa. I didn't know her phone passcode. I didn't want to hear her deny it or twist the story. I didn't have it in me to face her lies again. There was only one thing I knew for certain. The moment I read those messages, every ounce of love I had for her vanished like smoke. I sat there for hours, alone, under the bridge of an old railway line, holding a half-finished bottle of vodka mixed with Coke, my mind a complete mess. The cold wind seeped through my jacket, but I felt nothing except a numbing pain, as if my soul had been ripped out of me. Everything I had ever believed in my wife, my marriage, so-called friendships collapsed in a single night like a building imploding from the inside. I didn't cry. I just sat there in silence, watching time crawl by, asking myself, how the hell did I end up like this? I thought I'd be stuck there all night, but then 2 people walking their dogs passed by. They stopped when they noticed I didn't look okay. At first, I didn't plan to say anything, but then the words just came out of my mouth on their own. My wife begged my friend to sleep with her. That sentences spoken out loud felt like a punch to my chest. They both stood there quietly, listening, and then one of them, an older woman with sharp eyes and a calm voice, gently said, "Son, the worst thing you can do right now is drink. Alcohol will only make you do things you can't take back." I don't know why, but her words pulled me back from the edge. I thanked them, stood up, and tossed the remaining vodka bottle into a nearby trash can. One thought kept repeating in my head, I need to stay away from Lisa, as far away as possible. I called a close friend someone I knew wouldn't judge me, and he told me I could crash at his place for a few days. Even though he was at work, he told me where the spare key was hidden. The town I live in isn't that big, so it only took me about 20 minutes to walk there. I stepped into the empty house. The scent of old books and wood calmed me just a little. I sat on his sofa, pulled a blanket over myself, and stared blankly at the ceiling. My head was spinning with 1,000 questions. Why did she do this? What did I do wrong? Was I not good enough? But worse than any of those thoughts was the emptiness, like every positive emotion had been drained from me. All that was left was humiliation, pain, and disgust. That entire morning, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Texts, missed calls. Lisa asking, "Where are you? What's going on? Why aren't you answering?" I looked at the phone vibrating on the table and felt sick to my stomach. That person, someone I used to call my life partner, was now just a mask, and I had no idea who was behind it anymore. I finally replied with a single message. "The car broke down. I caught a ride to work." She replied, "Okay," like everything was normal. That evening, my friend came home from work. I told him everything. He didn't say much, he just sat and listened. I asked him not to tell anyone, especially not to mention anything to the jacket holder, a guy who used to be my friend and now was just a piece of trash. I knew I wouldn't hit him, but I sure as hell wasn't going to forgive him. Not because he slept with my wife, but because he was the one who initiated it, the one who started it all. The kind of man who destroys someone else's life just for a cheap thrill. My friend told me to stay calm, to not make any rash moves. He advised me to start gathering evidence, speak to a divorce lawyer, and let things play out step by step. I listened. That night, for the first time in days, I actually slept. Not because I was no longer in pain, but because, at the very least, I wasn't alone anymore. I got back home around 6 p.m. after a long, exhausting day. My body felt like it was falling apart, and my mind was floating somewhere above me. I didn't even know what I was expecting. Maybe a confrontation? An apology? Or some kind of half-baked performance from the woman I once called my wife? Either way, the moment I stepped through that door, I knew something was off. Lisa rushed out of the kitchen like she'd been waiting for me for over an hour. She immediately bombarded me with questions. Where have you been? Why didn't you answer my texts? What happened to the car? At first, I wanted to keep pretending to dodge, to deflect, but I was too tired, too drained to keep acting like everything was fine. I looked her straight in the eye and said calmly, like I was commenting on the weather, "I read the messages between you and him. On your watch, I know everything." I had never seen Lisa's face change so fast, confident 1 second, then confused, then completely terrified. She stammered, her mouth dropped open, and then she started crying. The tears came right on cue like a scene from a well-rehearsed script. She dropped to her knees and begged me to listen, swearing it was just drunken nonsense, that she never actually did anything wrong, that it was all just imagination. I stood there in silence. In my mind, the words from her text kept flashing like blades carving themselves into my memory. "I've always wanted you. No one would ever know. I'm really good at keeping secrets." Those aren't words someone who loves you would ever say. Those aren't things that slip out just because you're drunk. And they sure as hell don't come from someone who claims to be loyal. Finally, I cut her off with one sentence. "I want a divorce." No yelling, no insults, just a cold, definitive statement like closing a deal. Lisa screamed, clutched my arm, pleaded with me not to destroy everything. But I already knew the truth. Everything had already been destroyed. And she was the one who did it. I told her she'd be sleeping in the guest room from that night on, and that she had 1 month to move out. She went silent after that. No more words. We barely spoke after that. When we ran into each other in the house, I just glanced at her and walked away. Anytime she tried to talk, I either shook my head or gave her a cold, mocking smirk. I wasn't angry anymore. I was disgusted. And that kind of contempt is colder than any rage it makes the other person feel like they don't even matter. That first night she slept in the guest room, I couldn't sleep at all. Not because I regretted anything, but because I kept replaying the past. I had loved her with everything I had. I genuinely believed that if I loved hard enough, we could make it through anything, but no one ever tells you this part. Love can't save someone who chooses to betray you. The next morning, I made a call to schedule a meeting with a divorce lawyer. I also opened my own bank account, separated my finances, and started preparing for the split. I knew it wouldn't be easy. But at least there was one thing I could still control. I wasn't going to let her take another piece of me ever again. I used to think the most painful moment of my life was discovering that the woman I had loved for 7 years had begged a so-called friend to sleep with her. But it turns out the biggest shock didn't come from her. It came from the very people who brought me into this world, my parents. They didn't betray me with actions, but with silence, blind defense, and the way they chose her over their only son. After telling Lisa that I wanted a divorce and asking her to move out within a month, I started arranging everything so it could be handled as quickly and cleanly as possible. But there was one problem: the house we were living in still belonged to my parents. 6 years ago, they had moved into a retirement community and gifted the house to us as a belated wedding present. Legally, the house was still under their names, but emotionally, mentally, it had felt like mine for years. I was the one maintaining it, fixing it up, pouring money and time into every crack and leak, and yet now, this so-called home had become a place where I had no voice. I told my mom what Lisa had done. I imagined she'd be shocked, furious, ready to throw Lisa out of my life. But she just sighed and said, "I can't let her end up on the streets, son." I froze. I thought I misheard. I repeated myself more clearly this time. She texted my friend asking him to sleep with her. "You don't see anything wrong with that?" My mother shook her head. "She didn't do anything. They were just words. And haven't you ever upset your wife before? Marriage is about forgiveness." Forgiveness? I had considered it when I didn't know the full extent of what she had said. But after reading those gut-wrenching messages, forgiveness wasn't even on the table anymore. And now, my mother was standing there defending her, as if I was the one at fault. I turned to my dad, man I thought would defend me no matter what. He said nothing. He looked down at the floor, silent. That's how he's always been, letting my mom make all the decisions. And now, he was letting her choose to side with the person who betrayed their son. I asked plainly, "So if I refuse to live with her, what happens then?" Without hesitation, my mom said, "Then you leave. This house still belongs to us." In that moment, I felt like I wasn't even their son anymore. Everything I had poured into this family, my effort, my sacrifices, my love, it all vanished in an instant, erased by a woman who knew how to cry at the right time. Turns out Lisa had no real family of her own, and my mom had always seen her as the daughter she never had. Meanwhile, I, her actual son, was suddenly expendable. Lisa, a lying, cheating woman, had become the dream daughter. I walked out of that house without looking back. I knew that if I stayed, I'd lose my mind. Living with someone who betrayed me was already hell, but staying in a house where my own parents chose a stranger over their own blood? That was torture. I moved in with a friend while waiting for the divorce process to finalize. I cut off all contact with my mother, sending her just one message: "You've made your choice. Now I've made mine." Not long after that, I blocked her number. Because I knew if I kept that door open, I might weaken. I might start asking myself, what if I was wrong? But I wasn't wrong. The one who was wrong was the one who betrayed me. And the ones who were wrong were the ones who chose to protect her lies. I never thought there would come a day when I'd have to quietly walk away from the very house I had called home for so many years. But that morning, when I saw the note on the fridge, eye appointment, 10:30 a.m., I realized I had a short window, and I had to use it to disappear. I packed my things like a thief, but what I was really stealing was my own freedom. Every time I folded a shirt or opened a drawer, my eyes stung. Not out of regret, but because every object, every memory in that place had been tainted by betrayal. The dining table where I proposed to her, the couch where we once cuddled and watched movies, even the refrigerator where she used to leave me little love notes now, served only as reminders of a long, drawn-out lie. I didn't take everything, just what belonged to me: a few changes of clothes, my laptop, personal documents, and a few old photos of my mother when she was young. I left my wedding ring on the table, right next to the divorce papers my lawyer had prepared. I placed the house key on top of them and took one final look around. No tears, just a cold, hollow emptiness deep in my chest. I blocked Lisa's number as soon as I stepped out of the gate. I blocked my mother's too. I knew I couldn't bear to read another message begging me to give her another chance. They chose to side with her, so I had every right to choose how to protect myself. Right now, I'm staying at a friend's house. He offered me a small room with a window overlooking the garden and a bed that's firmer than I'd like, but at least I can sleep, something I hadn't been able to do properly in almost a month. It's temporary, sure, but it feels safe. No one lies to me here. No one pretends to love me. I've opened my own bank account and withdrawn 50% of the money from our joint account. Not out of greed, but because I don't trust her to let me walk away peacefully. I don't know how she'll react when she sees the divorce papers. Will she cry? Deny everything? Try to win my parents over again with those same manipulative tears? But none of that matters anymore. I won't be there to hear it. A few days later, I heard Lisa was still living in the house, and my mother continued to support her. I didn't respond. No texts, no calls. It's sad to think I was once their only child, and yet here I am, walking away from everything just to preserve what little self-respect I have left. I don't know what the future holds. I don't have a home of my own. I don't have a concrete plan. But I do have something I never truly appreciated until now: clarity. The clarity to know I can't fix something that's already dead. The clarity to walk away, even with a broken heart. And the clarity to finally understand that not everything we call family is truly a safe place. I had told myself I would never face my mother again. After everything she had done choosing to side with the woman who betrayed me instead of her own son, I truly believed my heart had frozen over for good. But then, one morning, a phone call from a close friend pulled me right back into the chaos I thought I'd left behind. After months of trudging through the mud of betrayal, pain, and loss, I finally saw the light at the end of the tunnel. One weekday, I got a call from my lawyer Lisa, or I guess I should say, my ex-wife, had officially signed the divorce papers. I stood still for a few seconds. Not because I was surprised, but because I felt this overwhelming sense of relief, like I'd been holding my breath underwater for nearly a year, and I was finally able to come up for air. Lisa left a message through my father. She apologized for not letting go sooner, said she believed she could still fix things, but now understood that she needed to let go so we could both move forward. She said she wouldn't ask for anything in the divorce and would move out of the house once she found a new place. Hearing that didn't make me feel victorious or smug. I just felt peace. For the first time in almost a year, my heart wasn't heavy. I also told my parents that if the house was really meant to be mine one day, I wanted them to transfer ownership to me now. Not because I needed it, but because I needed something solid to hold on to, something to remind me that I still had control over a life I'd nearly lost. My dad agreed. My mother said nothing. We hadn't spoken since that day in the hospital, and honestly, I wasn't sure if I was ready. I started therapy, not because I was weak, but because I knew that if I didn't clean up the wreckage inside me, I'd turn into someone I didn't recognize. My therapist said something that stuck with me. The best years of your life aren't behind you, they're the ones still ahead. I nearly cried when I heard that. I used to think I had lost everything: love, family, trust, but that sentence reminded me that I still had a future. And I had the right to live it with a new heart, even if it had once been broken. So, I made a decision on Lisa, and I never got to do together because she was afraid of flying. I would travel. New York would be my first stop. I asked a close friend to come with me, and we booked tickets for early October. The thought of walking under trees full of golden fall leaves, sipping coffee in a little cafe in Brooklyn, or just sitting quietly in Central Park breathing in freedom, just the idea of it made my heart beat faster. For the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful. I started waking up early, going for runs, listening to music, reading books, all the things I had forgotten when I was trapped in the tired shell of a broken marriage. I wasn't angry at Lisa anymore. I didn't resent my mom. I just wanted to live well, not to prove anything to anyone, but to restore justice to myself. I know the road ahead won't be easy. A broken heart doesn't heal after a few plane rides or therapy sessions, but I'm not afraid anymore. I've already fallen to rock bottom and I got back up. My story didn't end like some fairy tale, but it gave me something more valuable, a hard-earned lesson. Sometimes, the best way to love someone is to let them go. And the best way to love yourself is to start over, even if all you have is a pair of empty hands. A year after I discovered the woman I loved had betrayed me, I had a run-in I never expected and couldn't avoid. That day, I had just left a cafe after catching up with an old friend when I stopped by a supermarket in the town center to grab a few things. As I pushed open the entrance door, it swung open from the inside. And there we were, face to face, me and Lisa. We were both wearing masks, but eye contact is something you can't hide. I recognized her instantly. She recognized me, too. Lisa mumbled something under her breath. I couldn't make it out. We looked at each other for exactly 3 seconds. Then I walked in, and she walked out. That was it. No apology, no tears, nothing. Just two strangers crossing paths, each carrying the ghost of a love long dead. I thought I had moved on. After the divorce was finalized, I moved out, started therapy, planned a trip abroad. I truly believed I was healing. but all it took was one accidental encounter. A quick glance at Lisa, just 3 seconds, and suddenly everything came flooding back. The pain, the emptiness, the heartbreak. I froze in the middle of that supermarket aisle, reminding myself to breathe. I don't miss her. I miss who I thought she was. The woman I imagined spending my life with never existed. That truth was harder to swallow than the betrayal itself. Months later, a friend's girlfriend told me she had once seen Lisa kissing another man outside a bar years ago. She didn't say anything then, unsure if it was really her. But hearing it now didn't make me mad. It made me feel free. Maybe I'm really good at keeping secrets wasn't a drunken mistake, it was how she lived her life. But honestly, I don't care anymore. Our New York trip got postponed due to travel changes. I didn't mind. Whether I go in October or January doesn't matter, I will go. I'll stand in Times Square, look up at the sky, and know I survived the worst season of my life. My relationship with my parents hasn't healed. I don't feel resentment, but I don't feel closeness either. And that used to hurt, but now it doesn't. Some bonds, once broken, are better left untouched. I don't care about the house anymore. I once wanted it in my name to feel in control, but now I know real control is mastering your emotions. I don't need bricks and walls, I need peace. So that's what I'm building, a new version of myself. I go on morning walks, I write, I laugh more. I live not because I've forgotten the pain, but because I refuse to let it imprison me. I used to believe the best parts of life were behind me. Now I know. The best parts are still ahead, and I'm building them one day at a time.